welcome to the channel, and happy October to you. So, because I love fall and Halloween and everything so much, the art pieces that I'm going to be doing during October are going to be Halloween themed. This one that I'm starting on now is a wolf. It's a scary sort of wolf, sort of baring its teeth at the moon, as you will see. And this and a whole lot of other Halloween-ish art was actually inspired by a book that I've talked about a fair amount, which is a poetry collection, The Witch Doesn't Burn in This One by Amanda Lovelace. And it is a collection of feminist literature, angry sort of feminist literature, and so this here wolf is an angry feminist ready to eat patriarchy. Just so you know. Normally I'm a very cutesy wolf type person who likes to draw cutesy things, but that book very much inspired me to draw some angry things and some spooky things and a lot of witch things, so like cauldrons and stuff, which you may have seen in one of my sketchbook tours. So, I'm going to talk to you about how I'm making this piece, but I'm also probably going to chat about random things and particularly fall things, and also some plans for what I'm going to be releasing this month. One of the things is going to be I'm planning on making some Halloween baking videos, because I have, in like every magazine that's coming out this year and in several that I've saved from last year, there are Halloween baking ideas and Halloween cooking ideas, and it's just kind of wasted on just my own family because none of the rest of them are really into it. My little sister is a little bit, but not as much as me. If I'm going to make them, I'd like to share them with a wider audience. So I think I'm going to be doing some of those, and I think I'll also include my grandma's orange jello I'm planning on making because it's freaking delicious, and it's very... It had a lot of cozy sort of feelings associated with it because my grandma used to make it for holidays, like Thanksgiving and Christmas. So, and I've been craving it a little bit lately. And I have all the ingredients, so I'm quite excited. But also some other things like with spiders and cake pops decorated Halloween-ish and such and so forth. And right now I'm also trying to figure out how to decorate my room for Halloween, because I've got one place that I've released the video of me decorating, and it has used up quite a lot of my Halloween decor stuff, but I've got almost, not quite, half as much again as what I already decorated with, so, and no much place to put it, so I'm trying to work on figuring out how to put those things, because most of them aren't like posters or things that I can hang on my door like I had for Valentine's Day and decorated my door for Valentine's Day with those. They're mostly like little knick-knack type things and pumpkins that I can like set around, but that need like a shelf to go on, and my shelves are mainly taken up with knick-knacks because I have a terrible tendency to accumulate knickknacks, particularly fairy figurines and such, and blown glass. I freaking love blown glass. Wanted to put a lot of layers into the sky of reds and blues and different types of blues and purples and such, so that I would get a complicated sort of look. So I wanted there to be a lot of different colors going on in the background because it's sort of a sunset going into twilight sort of time of day, and I wanted to represent the multiple colors that you get at that time. And I just really love sky scenes that have a lot of stuff going on in them. The sort of sunsets that we get in this area a lot, it's wet enough that we have quite a lot of clouds, like cumulus clouds, the puffy ones, but we don't have too many tall trees that block out the sky, so we'll get some very nice multicolored sunsets, and I really like those, and would like to bring them into my art because I just love them so much. And then while I was working on this lovely lady's fur, I got some reference from online pictures of wolves, and I kind of noticed like there was a common pattern of having darker fur on the nose going up over the forehead and to the ears, and then kind of a lighter that would come from the lower part of the nose and hook over the eye and come down. So I kind of put that into my piece. I wanted it to be a very dark wolf so that it was kind of a monster-y type wolf, while like mainly the pictures that I saw were like gray on top and white underneath, or with various bits of brown. I made mine black on the very dark gray in the top fur and darker fur, and then had medium gray for the lighter fur. And one of the things I was hoping to capture a nice fluffy hairy texture for the wolf, and I think that turned out fairly well too, with using this small brush and making individual strokes for little clumps of hair. And also on the ears on my cats, and also I saw in the photos of the wolves, a lot of the fur on their ears and around kind of that area on their temples and stuff tends to be shorter and just has kind of a different texture. You might know what I'm talking about if you have a cat, and you know, like their little temples have that kind of funny textured hair. And so I kind of tried to capture that by tapping the brush from the top. While it wasn't very wet, it was a fairly dry brush with black paint on it, and just dabbed it. That's the word, dabbing. Yes, I dabbed the brush. That worked pretty well to get kind of the fuzz type texture rather than the hairy type texture that I did for the rest of the fur. One of the funnest things actually to paint on this one, besides the sky that you'll see later, was the wolf's teeth. I hadn't really painted animal teeth before. It's always really nice when you can just improv something and then it works out. You might be wondering what I'm doing with the little weird line of darker fur on the wolf there. I'm actually kind of trying to figure out where the shoulder would be. We're kind of trying to bring that not only separated out so that you can see a different shape within the wolf's fur, but also kind of bring it into the foreground slightly by making it darker and more defined than the rest of the wolf's dark fur. I thought that the wolf could use some more definition on the fur, because also another thing about a lot of the wolf photos I was looking at is they have a lot of individual little hairs that you can pick out that make their fur slightly mottled or slightly more interesting. Basically, it's just not all the same color, even in parts that kind of look like they're all in one color block. They have individual hairs that kind of stick out. So I wanted to put some more texture in by adding slightly darker gray hairs in the light gray section, and then some black hairs in the darker gray section. And now for the eye. I wanted there to be a number of different colors within the eye, because that's what people's eyes look like. And so I went for green because I didn't really want them to be blue, which is my default favorite color, because that's my eye color. I didn't want them to be red, because this is like, she's angry for a reason. She's not just born to be evil. And brown or yellow seem to be too like normal for an animal. That's very much the normal eye color for an animal, although a lot of wolves actually do have blue eyes from the photos I looked at. But so I decided on green, because that is another very pretty eye color. And another thing about the eye is that I had to look up, because I wasn't sure what shape a wolf's pupils are, because as I'm sure you know, cats' pupils are slits that do appear to be circles when they're very wide and very dilated. And horses' pupils are like sideways slits. They're like slits the other if you turned it 90 degrees. So I wasn't sure what dogs have, or if even wolves and dogs have the same thing. So I looked at the photos. Turns out they have round pupils like us. And then, of course, for the final touch, the little white shiny reflection that makes eyes look wet and round. And then, of course, when the eye was finished, I went back to adding more black hairs in amongst the dark gray fur, partially to add more dimension and also to cover up the white to make the fur look less like it had holes in it. Oh, and then the pictures I was looking at had like longer hairs sticking out from the middle of the light fur that would usually be in the light fuzzy type fur that would usually be in the ear. They would have like longer other colored hairs, probably for sensing things like cat's upper whiskers. So I added some of those to the ear to make it a little more 3D and realistic. And now we are on to the sky, starting with the moon. It was a little bit difficult to get a nice roundish sort of line. Round things are so hard sometimes, especially when they're big. Like when I was working on the eye, I was able to do a swoop kind of in one motion, but for the moon I had to be really aware of what I was doing and figure it out well. And I had to keep a lot of white paint on my brush so that it didn't make that dry, patchy sort of effect that is so annoying when you're not actually trying to do it, as I was when I was making the fur on the wolf's ears. And now we get to the pretty part, making the sky. It was very intimidating because I really wanted it to be good, and it could be so good, but it could also be so pathetic if it didn't turn out right. I think it actually did turn out right, so I'm really happy about that. So once again, I'm using the same sorts of colors that I used when I was making the background of the sky to make these cloudy shapes, but usually less diluted, so you can see it's a fairly strong reddish purpley pink streak coming across there, and then the blue is also fairly dark, the blue clouds there. I was mainly using red with a bit of blue in it, and I had this like true blue paint, and then I also have a greenish blue paint, so I was using all three of those mixed in different proportions to make these colorful clouds. And basically I was keeping them not very cumulus, slightly puffy, but mainly streaky, because those are those are easier to paint, because cumulus clouds, they're gorgeous, but I didn't feel like I was quite up to that level yet of painting cumulus clouds, because they have so many folds and the way that light plays on them is fascinating and gorgeous once again, but I didn't feel I was too intimidated to try that. And one thing about skies that I learned a long time ago is that it doesn't take a very dark blue over the whole sky to make the sky look really dark, like it's nighttime. The other thing that I was doing a lot of was I did want to play with the moonlight and at least experiment with that a little bit, even though I wasn't doing full cumulus cloud level. So I did go along, and on the tops of all the clouds, I did go look at some reference pictures of clouds in the moonlight. If you just search that up, you'll get lots of pretty pictures of clouds in the moonlight. I decided to go with little white highlights along the tops of all the clouds, like they're being shined on from above by the moon. And then I got some references for the moon too, to make some craters, which I don't think are the best, but they're alright for my first moon painting. And then did a little glow up around the edge of the moon, so it looks like it's casting light. Thank you so much for watching my video. Hope you've enjoyed. Oh yes, I did remember at the last minute to give a little shine on the nose so it looks a little bit wet. Because if you have a healthy doggy, she's got a wet nose. And that should be all. So thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in the next video, which could be about creepy book recommendations, or it could be creepy baking, or another creepy haul. I'm not sure what order I'm going to do any of this in, but I will see you then. So thank you for watching. That's probably the third time I said this. Anyway, goodbye.